While things don't seem all that great on a global economic scale in terms of the global agricultural industry, some countries are doing far better than the rest of the world, and one of them is Australia. But how is Australia doing so well in the agricultural industry, despite the concerns of a growing Russian incursion of Ukraine and the conditions brought on by the pandemic? Also, how do things seem for Australia in the future regarding the agricultural sector? We'll be answering all of these questions in today's video, and with that said, let's take a deep dive into the subject. Firstly, good news for Australia. It's pretty much an understatement that Australian farmers are having a record-breaking good time when it comes to the development of the Australian agricultural industry. It's estimated by many reports by government economists over at the Australian Bureau of Agriculture and Resource Economics and Sciences that the agricultural industry of Australia is expected to grow to a staggering $73 billion in this financial year alone. Things seem to be pretty bright for these farmers, as they're pretty much satisfied with their crop yield and the net profits they made from their crops. It's only good times for them going forward. Suppose this is realized to its full potential. In that case, farmers in Australia will break $70 billion for the first time, breaking the previous record of $66.3 billion in 2020-2021 and the older record of $59.6 billion in the drought-ravaged conditions back in 2017-2018. Next, good weather, good yields. There's good weather across most of the country of Australia, and profits and net yields are expected to be boosted further due to the drought and serious economic conditions faced by Canada, Russia, and Ukraine due to the impending war that looms over their heads. But this only means good news for Australia, as net profits are expected to go through the roof, as grain growers are expected to export around $30 billion of winter crop, which is around a 17% increase from the previous year. ABARES of Australia states that sugar, cotton, and grain farmers are expected to reel in around $40 billion in the 2021-2022 period, which is good news for them and the world. There's always an insatiable desire and need for protein among the masses. There's a pretty good return to the seasons, and herd building is expected to retain livestock prices near record highs, with the valuation of the red meat sector forecast to jump by as much as 8% this year to $33.5 billion. It's expected that the prices of Aussie-grown fruits and vegetables are also expected to hit a record value, as it hauls more than $12 billion at the farm gates alone. ABARES expects a global economic recovery to keep wool prices strong, and the high price of livestock feed in China is expected to drive up the demand for globally established Australian dairy products. The executive director over at ABARES, Jared, stated in an interview that the forecast for next year is due to a combination of factors. All of them are neatly tumbling into place. Although there are many risks for natural disasters such as mice, labor, availability, and the expected continued uncertainties regarding COVID-19, we are still expecting the whole of the national production to remain robust. Australia is still going pretty strong, as the food and fiber exports of the country are also expected to be at a record high of $54.7 billion, jumping by 12% in 2021-2022. Then, the latest commodity forecast released by ABARES shows that the valuation of Australia's farm production has been revised up by 12%, or in numerals, a staggering $8 billion, which is considered the largest revision made in a single quarter for 21 years. Now for some downsides to consider. There are always ups and downs, and it's the same case for Australia as well. ABARES has identified that Australia's international trade relationships, access to farm workers, high international freight costs, and pests, particularly the mouse plague, which is rampant, are all considered to be potential disruptors to the farm sector's good yields. A reporter stated that the speed of the COVID-19 vaccine's distribution is their downside risk, especially in emerging and developing countries. Continued outbreaks are expected to increase further the risk of the virus variants, which could become more and more resistant to vaccines. The infectiousness might go up and are more likely to cause some serious illnesses or even death. This would drastically slow the recovery when it comes to traveling and discretionary spending, and would reduce the prices of agricultural products, which is a big no-no. The report decided to discuss Australia's domestic vaccine rollout, which seems to be doing fine for the most part. It is stated that Australia might have lost one of its most valuable markets, such as China, for most wine and barley due to increasing political tensions. It is still having a great effect on its returns, which could have been higher if the political conditions were positive for the most part. Agricultural exporters are proving adept at diversifying into new markets or taking advantage of changes in trade flows. This also comes with transition costs and low prices, as seen for barley, which Dr. Jared Greenville stated. The doctor went on to say that the estimated price of barley has dropped by a staggering 20% since the introduction of tariffs by China back in May of 2022. According to ABARES, the value of wine exports is also expected to fall by an extra 123% in 2021-2022 due to China's imposed tariffs. COVID restrictions have also exacerbated border restrictions, resulting in a labor shortage. This has been pretty bad in terms of the retail price of fruits and vegetables, which have jumped around 5% in contrast to last year. ABARES predicts that the retail price of fruits and vegetables will be similar again this year. What's expected in the future? ABARES predicts Australian agricultural production to fall beyond in the years after 2022, assuming better seasonal conditions will mean better returns for its overseas competitors. Dr. Greenville stated that all good things soon come to an end, but it will mean stabler markets globally, so that's a plus side, even if it means that the agricultural economy of Australia has to fall a bit behind to make that happen. Australian farmers operate in one of the most variable climates of the world, so good prices aren't expected to keep coming, and the same can't be said for high world prices. The forecast was described by the Agricultural Minister David Littleproud as pandemic-defying. He stated that they're dealing with unprecedented economic times, and plenty of industries in Australia haven't been lucky enough to see that kind of growth. They're looking towards their second good year in a row with a boost in crop harvest, as well as international demand for their produce and a stronger market for livestock. It's been stated that the National Farmer Federation has set a government-endorsed goal for the growth of the industry, and it is worth around $100 billion by 2023, and that's a lot. Now, let's talk about the agricultural industry in Ukraine. Although things seem pretty good for Australia, the same can't be said for the Eastern European country of Ukraine, is seeing massive blows to its economic trade, especially in the agricultural sector, as the impending war between Russia and Ukraine has increased tension among Ukrainian farmers. Farmers are terrified out for their lives to work in the fields due to the continuous bombings, and prices of goods and services are skyrocketing high. There's also the problem of a shortage of the supply chain, and inflation is on the rise as things seem glum for Ukraine. Ukrainian farmers try to stay calm and indoors as safety is their #1 priority. Many Ukrainian agricultural industries are trying their best also to get their hands on loans, but banks aren't cooperating with them in this regard. With the increase in oil prices by as much as $100 per barrel, the transport of raw goods is also becoming expensive, and Ukraine can't export and trade much these days due to the oceanic routes being invaded by the Russians. Although things seem grim for now, it's possible that negotiations and talks between world leaders, NATO, Russia, and Ukraine might lead the conflict to be resolved sooner or later, as a third world war will lead to a global economic crisis, and Ukraine will suffer a lot because famine, starvation, and hunger will definitely become rampant. No one wants to take these risks, considering the effects of the First and Second World Wars, and it's expected that things will die down sooner or later. Till then, the citizens of Ukraine and Ukrainian farmers have to put up with the current circumstances and make ends meet one way or another. There's always a silver lining to a dark cloud, and sooner or later, matters will be resolved. We hope the war comes to an end soon. Our prayers are with the Ukrainian people. And that's pretty much it for today's video. What do you think of Australia's agriculture sector? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. Stay tuned as we get more news to share with you. With that said, we bid you farewell. Goodbye, and have a great time. See you later.